Hello, my name is Blake Caruso, and I am presenting my research proposal. It's titled Understanding Doctor Patient Communication Through Gender, Why Women Might Be Better Communicators in the Doctor's Office. So, I'm going to start off with my topic and some findings. My topic, I'll just read it off the slide here. It's a study of female physicians' use of patient-centered communication and its effect on their patients' medical outcomes. Some of the interesting findings that I had, one of the interesting findings that I had when, just reviewing the research, making some connections, female physicians' communicative style does lead to patient-centered communication and patient satisfaction. So the whole premise for this study is female physicians' use of patient-centered communication. And be prepared, there is a lot of P's in this presentation, so if I mispronunciate something, it's because I've probably said something with a P in it about 1,000 times. But patient-centered communication, or PCC, basically is making the patient the center of your communication. It's done by making them aware of information pertaining to their medical decision making and allowing them to provide their own perspectives and preferences in care. And that's done through a variety of different ways, but females' communicative style has been proven to demonstrate patient-centered communication, and also it has been known to have higher patient satisfaction. I'm not going to get into all the technicals here. Some of it has to do with verbal aggressiveness between male and females, but patient satisfaction, I'm also going to be talking about a lot about that, is directly correlated with patient-centered communication. So when patient satisfaction is high, when the patient leaves the interaction satisfied, more than likely patient-centered communication is going to be used in that interaction. High satisfaction correlates with high patient-centered communication. The justification for my study is the simple fact that physicians are forced to spend less and less time with their patients. I saw one of the articles that I referenced in my paper. It was in 1999. And in 1999, 25 years ago, that's some good math for a comm major right there. 25 years ago, physicians reported, 41% of physicians reported that they were spending too little time with their patients. They weren't spending enough time with their patients. And that's before digitalization and the sheer volume of people coming through the hospitals now, the growth in our healthcare system. So physicians are short on time. And what was also evident in the research is that time is directly related to patient-centered communication and patient satisfaction. So time went up, patient-centered communication went up, patient satisfaction went up. So you cut down on time, patient-centered communication is going to go down, patient satisfaction is going to go down. I'm coming from a standpoint in the study that we're in a medical era that depends on these short medical visits. We don't have the infrastructure, we don't have the money, we don't have the sheer amount of doctors and nurses to spend the necessary quality time with patients. I mean, I like to think that was possible, but I'm thinking that it's not really. It's kind of a fantasy. So I'm coming from the perspective that this is how it is. What can we do about it? And we know that females physicians display patient-centered communication more than male physicians. We know this. So what's the effect on patient outcomes? How can we understand what aspects, what characteristics that these female physicians are displaying? How can we, better ourselves, understand what's going on in this communicative process, and really condense our visits down and get them to where they can be the best they can be in the limited time that we have. So that's the justification for the study. So some implications on current research. My research hypothesis, I don't have word for word in front of me, but it is since female physicians display higher levels of patient-centered communication, does this lead to better medical outcomes for their patients? So if this was to come to fruition, if this was to be supported, it would lead, it would allow researchers to test specific regions, specific areas of PCC. I'm not going to get into my whole methods section and what exactly what I'm breaking it down into, but the subcategories as far as characteristics displayed, gender of the patient, gender of the physician, what type of qualities they had. I'm not going to get into every single thing, but I'll give you an example. So say, and my research found that empathetic communication, which is an aspect of patient-centered communication, leads to a 25% increase in good, positive health outcomes of the patient compared to unempathetic communication. Then researchers could take that, maybe implement that into some of the current research and test as to whether or not this can be applied and this can be taught to individuals, or if it's just a female trait, or what they can dive into a little bit more. And I think that can be applied to different outcomes, different sections and characteristics. My survey will be a quantitative one, so you'll have a lot of different statistics to play around with at the end of the data gathering, and really I hope can make a lot of interesting correlations as far as we have this broad idea of patient-centered communication, and we can break it down into these characteristics. We can code for it. So what individual characteristic, what's everything that goes on to a better health outcome, and how much of an effect is it having? So I also state that researchers will know exactly how good patient-centered communication is, and it will give them a statistical start point for future research. So if my study comes out and says that patient health outcomes have increased by 200% in physicians that use patient-centered communication, well, then we know that that's good. We can apply that to a bunch of different things. At the same point, if it comes out and there's no correlation between gender, patient-centered communication, different characteristics, nothing like that, it's not, and none of it's relevant, then we know that it's not, and we can develop other avenues to, better tailor our patient-physician communication. And as I stated, kind of hinted on, it can identify what characteristics present in female physicians lead to patient-centered communication and teach them at the med school level. So if I go back to my empathy example, if we know that empathy leads to better health outcomes, then maybe we can teach our physicians, hey, try to be empathetic, be conscious of it. If you go in there, somebody's crying, ask them how they are, how can I help, be conscious of that type of thing, and try to make an empathetic effort. But that's just one example. Whatever the researcher would find, you can apply that depending on where you need to apply it. Population. So I'll dive into a little bit of the population here. 300 normal physician-patient interactions, like doctor's visit type thing. 3 locations, distant from one another by at least 800 miles, and of different time zones. So some example locations would be New York, Chicago, LA. I feel like those would be the easiest to do just because of the sheer amount of people, hospitals, healthcare, places. You're not having to drive, an hour to, if one hospital turns us down for the study, we don't have to drive an hour to another one. We'll go 2 blocks down and boom, we're at another hospital, or, something like that. So it'll be a little easier to do it in a large suburban area than it would in a rural area. Possibly in future research can take that down the rural road and try to understand the differences in patient-centered communication, gender, and all of that in a rural setting. But for my population, I'm more focused on the suburban areas. One of the key factors is my population cannot have a terminal illness. And they can't have a terminal illness is because I'm testing for their health outcomes. So obviously if they have a terminal illness, their health outcomes, doesn't matter how good the patient-centered communication is, aren't going to be good, unfortunately. So can't use them in my test group. And I'm focusing on the American healthcare system only. That's what I'm testing. I'm an American. We've got problems here in America, so I'm looking at the American healthcare system. Some of the theories that I used, or the theory that I used, and the work that I used was muted group theory, and Deborah Tannen's theories and work on gender and culture. Let me see if I can get a good quote here for you. Well, anyway, muted group theory helps to identify some of the cultural aspects that could have fostered differences between male and female communication styles, leading to female physicians' greater usage of PCC. Like, for example, physicians' talk tends to be focused on connection, while males tend to be focused on autonomy. So you see, and one of the aspects of patient-centered communication is empathy, is relating to the patient and connecting with the patient. If you focus on autonomy more than connection, well, who's going to have higher levels of patient-centered communication? And what's that going to mean? Is the patient going to tell you everything they want to tell you? Are they going to get the best treatment possible, the best care, or the care that they want? So that's the basis of the muted group theory. Deborah Tannen's work also, talks about the intercultural communications between different genders, which could lead to one gender focusing more on patient-centered communication than another. And Deborah Tannen has this whole different culture, men and women communicational styles. So, men tend to talk more in public and be more concerned with status, while women talk more in private and tend to seek human connection. So a doctor's office is going to be private, and you're interacting interpersonally with a person. So you're going to somebody who's more apt to seek human connection is going to get more information out of that person, is going to best help serve their needs, rather than someone who's more concerned with status, or maybe not even concerned with status, but it's part of their culture. So that's in the forefront. That's there. Nobody wants to talk to somebody that thinks they're better than them, or most people don't. They're not gonna, open up to them and divulge everything that they can that can possibly help their medical outcomes. So that's just some basic stuff. I think researchers can take this in different directions. But anyway, this has been my research proposal. Thank you.